How's Operation Boring Tape Drive? Just got more interesting. How's Operation Boring Tape Drive? Just got more interesting.
Yes. Another week, another void. You tuned in. Looks like we got one person in on YouTube. Must be a super fan. And nobody so far on Facebook. So sometimes it takes a while. I didn't do any promotion on this episode, so shame on me. But here we are, broadcasting live from the shop studio in Duval. And yes, in for another episode. I threw it out there. Reparations. Somebody, one of the fans of the show, got in touch and said, "Hey, there's been a topic going around. There's a movement, African descendants of slaves, and they've got a movement." Oh, let me get this camera. Sorry. There I am, yapping away. Well, and for the audio only listeners, I guess it doesn't make a difference. But I know we've got some folks on YouTube and maybe possibly on Facebook. We had somebody on Facebook for a second. That's all right. Here we go. Maybe they'll stick around when they see the picture of the shop studios. And for our audio only listeners, I guess you don't even need, you can imagine the shop studios. It's just a message shop. And I happen to be filming a show in it because I got a chair and a little space that I've cleared to make that possible. And please excuse me, I've been doing some running to get in shape, as I've mentioned on previous shows. Trying to get in shape for an upcoming Gate River run here, a local run that we do here in Jacksonville. And anyway, I'm going to be sipping on this protein shake so I can drink it within some reasonable amount of time after my workout. It seems, I don't know if it's just placebo effect, but I feel like I'm a little bit less sore after I drink, after I've worked out and I drink a protein shake, then I omit the shake. Just maybe it's just my brain. But whatever, if it's placebo effect, let it take hold, because I hate being sore. But I do like exercising and trying to stay in shape, especially as I get old. Feeling the years and showing the gray hairs. As you see, I have made a vow to myself that I will not dye my hair. So I'm just going to be dealing with this gray as it goes, So Seprock Beats again. I don't know if it's on his band camp or not. Necessarily, it is on this track that I've been playing. Is side B, number 14, and it is on the double album set from Sunken City Records, if I remember correctly. And looks like we got a check-in from Superfan Mike. What's up? Oh, we got Superfan Chris in the house. What's up? Looks like, maybe just you guys today so far. So spread the word, try to get some folks in, or we have a cozy chat, and folks will be listening in later in the archives to see what we've come up with in our chat. So, by the way, as I mentioned, the topic was from a super fan, and they said, hey, this has been floating around. What do you think about this controversial topic? I said the void is made for controversial topics, so let's roll with it. And so I threw it there, and I figured it's sort of controversial enough that we might see some folks that are YouTube subscribers out of I think we might be up to 50 something YouTube subscribers, or getting close. Anyway, some of those folks might be tuning in, and also some folks on Facebook, and we can get some more fans tuning in to talk about stuff like this. Now, it's not the only thing we need to talk, or we are going to talk about. There's just so much to talk about. So if you have a topic, get in touch with me, and we can discuss the topic. So anyway, title of this episode, reparations. That's a tricky subject, as everyone knows. I don't think there's any really quick answer to that. Dave Chappelle did a cool skit, pretty funny skit about it back in the day about reparations. I think it should definitely be a conversation that we should have in a reality, but I mean, oh man, it's a tricky thing. I do have a something that I sort of refer to as a reflection theory that for reparations, that makes it a little bit more clear how reparations would work, but I don't know. It's still a doozy of a topic. Superfan Chris says this is a sticky subject and can offend some people, but it's also a very hot topic with elections right now. Yes, especially with this whole ADOS or ADOS movement, African Descendants of Slavery movement. There's a lot of hype going around about, I guess, one of the big parts of the movement that's, I think, detrimental, where I understand the fight or move for reparations. I think something's long due for the fact that there was an institutional, state-mandated condition of slavery and a condition of Jim Crow and conditions based on race mandated by the state. You know what I mean? So somehow the state apparatus, it has to get involved in that, and reparations is going to have to involve something that way. The way back through reparations is going to be back through the power structures that allowed for the injustice in the first place. However, I think that there's also a big important point that we have to think about. So ADOS has to, number one, have to understand that in order to the ADOS, when I say that, I'm referring to African descendants of slaves. Those who want reparations therein will have to agree to some standard of or methodology of determining who would qualify as ADOS. You know, if I came from Barbados, like Barbados or something, or some other place, and I'm black, and I'm not a descendant of slave, even from Barbados, do I count because I'm black, right? ADOS would say no, right? If I'm from Zimbabwe, I'm like just came on a plane last year, and reparations came through in 2022. ADOS would say no, just because you're black doesn't mean you get paid and or reparations. And so I think that's a fair point. Okay, so I think a lot of people could agree with that. Even those opposed to reparations at face value could agree that only the African descendants of slaves who were subject to that slavery should get reparations for slavery. Now, how about redlining? How about Jim Crow? How about Homestead Act? How about other things like a lot of the New Deal stuff that's heralded for like the middle class and the burgeoning society? Either that, or if you want to blame it, if you want to say that the war trudged us out of our capitalist utopia, the fact that we need a world war to help reset capitalist failures, that's a signal. So there's no way that capitalists can win this, really, at the end of the day. Either Keynesian or basically giant collectivist social programs done through debt and basically Keynesian economics, more or less, brought us out, or basically Keynesian economics through the war machine and the need for the war effort and the debts for that were paid by Europe and other places, and extraction and ownership by the America, the United States. Anyway, that all plays into it, right? So anyway, there's a lot to this. So this is a very deep tapestry, and on one hand, you could almost say that the time frame has gone by so long that there's nobody that was responsible. Therefore, there's nobody that should pay the burden for that. Writing of the writing of justice, etc. And I mean, I can see that point, but on the other hand, we can't. On the other hand, we're almost conceding that the white racists that set up the conditions in the first place can be standing there, wringing their hands, chuckling that, haha, we've kicked the can down the road long enough that we no longer can actually address this. And so, haha, we just give it up. We can't just throw our hands in the air and just say, yeah, that's it. I don't think, can we? Is that the answer? So I don't know. My reflection theory, though, is that if you have someone who is say that they've traced themselves to they have a lineage, a descendancy from slavery, that they can on the flip side, if they can prove that they are a descendant of slave, then that means they can also prove the existence of the slaver, and slaver lineage can now be followed. And so therefore there may be a potential that it could fall on the backs of those who directly inherited the fruits of slave labor. And that might be a relative minority of people, but there was a lot of slaves that were involved in that. Even still, that might still be a relative minority of the actual U.S. population. So I don't know. There might be a situation where there could be a reparations. I guess you could call it a tax, but it's basically you'd call it's a tax on those people identified in the reflection of the slave descendancy. You know what I mean? And so those people could, I mean, it basically be a transfer payment, a redistribution of wealth from that point to the slave descendants, if that makes sense, right? And I don't know, we can talk about the details, but the fact that we're having a conversation, I think, is the first step. But ADOS has to be like able to propose a way that's constitutional, that they will accept, that they can prove their ADOS legitimacy, right? So I mean, it becomes a conundrum. So it almost becomes something you can't work out. But we can't give up, because otherwise the white supremacists that set that up in the first place win, sort of. I don't know, unless the black people, ADOS, I guess, really specifically ADOS. I mean, large. If you want to look at it in a larger global sense, I mean, really, there's a lot of Western colonialism, that crazy shit. You know, Belgium did some crazy, King Leopold did some crazy shit to Africa. You know, Europe, the Western world, not only America, did some crazy shit based on racism, not only to Africa, but also to Asia, to South America. I mean, basically the non-white nations. Yeah. There's a lot of shit that's happened in the past. Now, some people think that by saying that, it's like nation hate, or like I hate America or some shit like that, but that's not. I mean, we just got to face the reality that our mob boss dad killed our bodega owner, buddy. That you know, maybe the bodega owner was, you know, the son. I mean, you were friends with the kid, you know, the son or the daughter or whatever, and you were invited to dinner, and the bodega owner like was really nice and cool, and now he got off because, you know, he didn't want to pay protection money, and so one of the goons killed him. And you know this because you stayed up late at night, and you heard your dad talking to the goons, and they killed Mr. Whoever at the bodega. Blah blah blah. Right? I mean, you still love your dad, but he's killing bodega owners. Come on. You know what I mean? So we can look at that, and it's the fact that, hey, maybe we don't want to kill bodega owners ourselves, but, you know, we're not going to also throw our dad under the bus per se. Maybe we will. I don't know. Some of you guys, I don't know. We can talk about that, what we would do legit if our parents were mob bosses killing bodega owners, but that's another episode. Well, maybe it's this episode. Fuck, I don't know. All right, Chris, Superfan Chris, as a black man, I wonder how would the money actually be allocated? Would it even be money? Probably some money. Who gets to pick and choose? There is a large group of black Americans who consider themselves the indigenous people of America. Yeah, I heard about that. Isn't there, what do they call it? There's a word for them. Hold on a second. I don't remember the word for it. They have a name. Shit, I can't remember the name. Okay, so here we go. This means they aren't considered ADOS. Oh, geez. So there may be people considered white that would also get reparations, also, since there's mixing of races back during slavery as well. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, if you can trace yourself to slave lineage, doesn't matter. I mean, whatever. If you're a white person that got enslaved somehow, I don't know. I mean, sure. I mean, maybe it happened. Whatever. I'm not a history aficionado, so I can't say for sure. Excuse me while I scratch my ear. Oh my god. Took a shower and I got some water stuck in there. All right, so Superman Chris says this means they aren't considered ADOS. Wait, maybe considered white. Reparation. Okay, yes, mixing. I'd rather see land given than any type of money given. And Superfan Mike says, I like the idea of giving land. Right, 40 acres and a mule, that idea. That's important. That can also equate to generational wealth, which then can be passed down, right? That land can appreciate. You can take a loan against the land, things like that. So a land grant, stuff like that, you know, could be there could be some monetary stuff too. But I mean, we got to have a conversation, but we also have to look at method. We have to look at how this can happen. Like, how would you carry it out? And again, how would you identify it? And would these I guess black indigenous that they're trying to say is, I don't know. I mean, do they count too? I mean, what would they count for? I mean, obviously, would they automatically be looped into indigenous rights and whatever covers Native American stuff? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But we should probably look at that as a society. You know what I mean? We gotta look at these questions. We gotta answer some fundamental things, because at the end of the day, there was a massive thing that happened. Now, I watched a Dinesh D'Souza lecture, and he was talking about how unfair it would be to try to do reparations. Now, nobody here did slavery. Nobody here was really responsible for slavery. So now you are sort of, throwing out there that this is something that you're going to make people who weren't responsible for the condition now responsible for the reparation of the condition. And I mean, that concern is fair. However, the people that are affected today by that condition were not, that's not their fault that they are affected by that condition. That was a state and federally sanctioned condition. So that becomes an issue too. So it's not really fair to anybody, and we have our forefathers to blame. And really, that sucks. And so it falls on the shoulders of the children to figure something out. And I don't doubt that the children will figure something out. Now, there might be something to a notion of a post needs world where you don't, like, if we moved into a different style of living where we might not have the need for reparations, where it's like the same struggle isn't defined the same way. So then reparations almost become moot. If all tides rise above the need for, if the tide rises so high that the need for an equalizer like reparations becomes muted, can potentially the ADOS movement and the idea of black reparations be basically the martyrdom of the, not a martyrdom, but like in a way of some level of martyrdom, but a sacrifice done by the black race, basically. That it's just that we as a nation vowed to never forget what happened, and that ideas that pervade and suggest that condition be brought back again, that those things be prohibited, that it's not a free notion in the realm of ideas that someone else be the ownership of no one should have ownership over someone else as property, right? That's probably pretty clear to most people. But shit, that's used to be a way of life. Like literally, like there was no other economy. Like that was the shit. Like that's even though a minority of people had the slaves themselves, just like a minority of people have the most money and resources and assets now. The world revolved around those assets and the culture and the structures that were made around that economy. So it's like the whole South, the whole system of the South, even whether people had slaves or not, was built on the fact that things were running off of slavery. And it was something that people couldn't see back past. There was no thought that there was any other condition or any other way, that was just natural, that, certain races or certain people weren't really people, and that's why you could do it. And that motivated a lot of what we did. You know, I mean, the way we treated the Philippines, the way we treated South America, the way we treated Vietnam. We didn't treat those places or the way we treat Middle East. We don't we as an American citizens, not all, but like there's a big contingent just float around to any right wing site, any devout right wing site, float around there and see any references to some of these foreign nations and battles that we had, and we don't treat them as human beings. They are dehumanized, even if we're working for them. In a roundabout way, they dehumanize them. So there's a tendency towards doing that, and that kind of demotivation has, or excuse me, not demotivation. What am I saying? Dehumanization has motivated a lot of U.S. Foreign policy because of the white supremacist basically the white supremacist culture that's pervaded the country since a long time, and it's relatively recent that it's been shed. So we have to face that reality, I think. I mean, otherwise you're just not facing reality. It's reality. There's no other reality. It's just true. So now we have to. There's still echoes from that. There's still reverberations from that. We have to address those things, is what I'm saying. So looks like we got some comments coming through. Let me see what's going on Facebook here, and I'm going to start checking out these comments. And thank you all, by the way, for tuning in. And please like and subscribe and do what you can to get me in and this program into the algorithm so we can get more and more people into the talks and discussion, because we are not sticking to pre-written talking points and crap like that. We're going to see through the bull and talk about it issue by issue. That's what the Boyd's about, having a conversation with everybody. All right, let me see what I'm doing here. I'm just not good at multitasking. If you want to help out the Boyd and you're bored, I'm sure there are ways you can help out, because I'm trying to run this thing, and it is tough to try to do all this and whatnot. Okay, here we go. Got some comments. Mike says, my superfan Mike, I like the idea of giving land. Tina Campbell, welcome, Tina. I think this might be the first time I've seen your name in the comments, so thank you for joining us. There was no reason for them to put us into slavery. See, socialism coexisted with human rights. They took us from that and put it into capitalist system. That was the way of life for them. They talk about there rather give us land, not without money. Reparations takes many forms. Okay, and people try to dictate to us what we need is not reparations, because you're trying to dictate to us what we need, as long as it's in order with what in your system. Indeed. Okay. Tina goes on. What South America did was they went and had contracts with African white people, and then they treat the indigenous of this land as brownies like crap because of those contracts. Okay, interesting. Chris says another point I want to bring up was that of the descendants of the slave owners have no money or land now. Where would you get the reparations from? Indeed, that is a good question now. What if they squandered all their slave-gotten wealth and whatnot? God, I got the most uncomfortable chairs in the world. Why did I choose these chairs? I gotta figure something out. There's gotta be something. All right, anyway, I'll endure. I shall overcome. All right, looks like we got four very special people in the billions of people on this earth. Are there billions? It's like, are there 2 billion people? How many billion people anyway? You guys are tuned in. So we're having a conversation. We got one person tuned in on Facebook. Join the conversation. We're talking about, I don't know. Well, right now we're talking about reparations, but we can talk about other things too. But if we're talking about it, let's keep on going. So let's see. Chris says another point. I think I said, where would they get reparation from? Tina goes on to say, they don't want to see us have capitalism. Makes the world go round. How though? Chris says, "Oh, James, it's Indige. Is that the those are the indigenous folks that you must be talking about?" Right. I feel like there's another term too, multisyllabic. Well, that is multisyllabic, but there's even more syllables than that. But it wasn't indigenous. It didn't have the word indigenous. It was like an actual, like just a name, but it wasn't based on indigenous as a root word. Dang it. It was like, like a tribe name or something. I don't remember. Anyhow, let me sort of try to parse out what Tina says. And hello, Tina, and welcome to the show, by the way. I hope you tune in all the time and subscribe and like and share and get more people involved, especially people who don't agree with what we're talking about. Let's try to bridge the gap. I mean, not that we're going to give any leeway or quarter, but maybe we can either destroy them and to the point where they will then want to join us, or who knows, we'll expose them for the frauds that they are, because if they disagree with our critically thought positions, then that means that we have to, they are coming up with more critical thoughts. And so if you can't combat or come up with answers that go along with those critical thoughts or challenges, then that is a problem, right? And that's where you have to critically and thoroughly examine your opinion, right? Remember, as Tim Minchin said, opinions and assholes are alike, except that unlike assholes, your opinion should be constantly and thoroughly examined, right? We do not want to constantly and thoroughly examine an asshole, right? Most of us don't want to do that. All right, what's up? My boy Maine has checked in from Facebook. What's up? Tell me what you think about reparations, Maine. Dump it down on the comment stream, and I will try to include it here in the show, because people on the YouTube chat are blowing it up. What's up? Yes. Let's see. What do we got? Chris says, okay. And then Tina says, I don't know exactly what she's responding to, but she's laughing and her too. So, all right. But anyway, that's why reparations is not right now, she says. Wait, why is reparations not right now? And by the way, Skype, I think my Skype is actually working now. So if you follow the Skype link, you can actually call in. You don't have to have your face if you're camera shy, but you can call in and talk if you'd like. And if it's easier for you to talk instead of type, and you can be on the show and voice your opinion that way. Tina says, excuse me, if I can use your first name, Tina, Miss Campbell. The thing is that South Americans don't put themselves in the same boat as us brown American Indians. Okay, so do you identify as like black Native Americans that he's talking about, that Chris was talking about, Superfan Chris? Tina says the contract in place themselves in an immigrant status. I don't quite know. Yes, confusion, she says. And yes, I am confused a little bit. But, oh, yeah, I think she's saying, yes, she identifies. And Chris is asking you, Tina, to explain the contract. And like I said, if you'd like to Skype in and explain to us vocally, verbally, or whatever, I guess, with your voice, you can do that. If you choose to type, I'm more than happy to read your responses in the live chat on air, or not really air, on the show. There you go. I think Maine dipped out on us. I don't know if he gave us any. I don't know if he gave us any response on what his take on reparations are. Doesn't look at it. All right. So, yes, if you could do the Skype, Chris is asking you, Tina, you have a request. Oh, God, I was attacked last night? That is intense. Are you okay? What is that? What do you mean attacked? Like literally attacked or figuratively attacked? Like attacked on Twitter or physically attacked? If you're physically attacked, I hope you've already gotten in touch with or have already reached out to emergency response, etc. Oh, you don't have Skype. Facebook Messenger might work. You might try that. Let me see if my Facebook Messenger works. Yeah. I might lose my Facebook feed, but we'll see. I mean, we got one person on Facebook, and hopefully they'll stick around, but we'll see. We're talking about some deep stuff. If you want to get involved, dump some stuff in the comment section. However, let me warn you that the comment section on Facebook, for some reason, just really does not update well, so you might have to dump a few comments in there. But we did talk about reparations a little bit. We're going to talk about that some more. But now we're talking a little bit about Tina, what she brought up about the contract, some contracts. Okay, yes. So if you have, by the way, if you have Tina on Facebook Messenger, you could find me, James Boyd, on Facebook. And you can messenger me if you don't have Skype, or you can download Skype real quick. I think the link I even have helps you to download Skype if you'd like. All right, so Tina says, okay, I'm thinking we don't have reparations right now because capitalism cannot coexist with human rights. Socialism can. Tina says, yes, you can use my, oh, thank you, Tina. Here I am using it. But here, thank you. Yes, American Indian. Okay. Yeah, I mean that's part of it. That's what I'm saying. If we had a situation where we moved into something where, honestly, I don't even think we can move into straight up socialism or whatever. I don't know exactly. People have different ideas of what that even means. I think the step would be to basically move to what people consider market socialism, and then eventually there will be an not an equilibrium, but more of an equilibrium of capacity and access to resources that may, like I said, may make it so that reparations almost doesn't need to be done because you're working within a socialist framework. So whatever needs you truly need are probably being met already, either by the state, hopefully not, or by the work that you've done in a previous capacity in life, still being able to support you in some way. I don't know. There's different ways to look at that. Okay. Yeah. You don't have Skype. So maybe, yeah, so you don't have to, but you can keep typing if you like. Chris wants to know, Tina, how are you able to trace down your tribe? My great grandmother always said she was Indian as well. And many of my family, supposedly my dad said, I am, or I have American Indian, Native American, what do you call it? Great grandmother. I don't know how true that is. Supposedly that is, but let's see. And so Tina says the contract is basically slavery between Africa and Europe. The contract between Africa and Europe. Tina goes on to say the contract between American Indians and the United States government, the contract between Latin America and the United States via slavery. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went on during that time. Yeah. Right. Yes, Tina says they all intertwine, and that's true. There's a lot. There's a lot that goes into it, and who really gets recognized for for whatever laws and whatnot, all got intertwined by who made agreements. Things were done verbally, right? Um, and yet now we're still dealing with the ramifications of those agreements. And so now what? I think that becomes a question. So I think there's ways that we could look at, you look at trying to make things right again, but not again. They never were right, is the thing. But we have to really think about what will work. So, for instance, if you're going to trace your lineage to an African descendant of, as an African, a descendant of slaves, then that means, the government has to verify that identity. And that might be pretty intrusive as far as Fourth Amendment rights go, as far as privacy rights, et cetera, go, whatever. So I don't know. That's a little bit tricky. Oh, Tina, unfortunately, is blocked on Facebook Messenger. Sorry to hear that, Tina. Okay, that's okay. We can read your comments, and thank you the way. I'm curious though, how did you hear about the channel? That would be interesting, and I'm really glad that you're able to tune in and jump in and give your take on things, because this is really a heavy topic. Some people want to stay away from that kind of thing, and I can understand why. In fact, looks like we even might have lost a couple folks. We got 2 folks still tuned in with us. And by the way, this isn't going to be a super long episode anyway. I feel like my voice is probably about to crap out on me and whatnot. And by the way, I appreciate you guys tuning in on while the World Series is going on. And maybe that's why some people tuned out. They're like, oh no, the World Series is going on. And Superfan Chris says, thank you for the info. And yeah, there was a lot of there were contracts during that time with with Native American tribes, with indigenous tribes through South America. There was also genocide that happened. There was just all sorts of stuff. And now we're looking back on those things and saying, oh, that was terrible. That wasn't good. And there's a lot of stuff that went wrong in the world that wasn't good. And really the point is, how do we make it right? I think that's a question that we should ask ourselves. How do we do better? How do we do better as people? Chris says, Superfan Chris says, so the story that Africans sold other Africans into slavery is part of a contract, correct? Right. And yeah, I don't know as far as the contract goes, but there was a whole, just as slavery in the American South. Hold on one second. Just had to get that over with. All right. So just as slavery in the South was an institution that upheld an economic system and cultural system, there was also that kind of mechanism that was born. Again, capitalism will co-opt anything. So tribal conflict that might have been happening, or tribal, or whatever you want to call groups of people, factions, whatever conflicts that were happening, just like they happened in Europe, just like they were happening in the quote unquote New World or North and South America, et cetera, with indigenous tribes and other factions and organizations, et cetera, nations, were happening. So everybody's been fighting each other since forever. But part of that was prisoners of war, of conquest, of whatever that was taken, and then becomes lucrative now, because there now becomes a demand for these slaves, and it becomes a whole economy based on it. So sure, there might have been white people living in Africa that are part of the slave trade, gathering slaves for sale in the big triangle of trade, to going from Africa to the to the Americas, and then going to Europe with the products of the slave labor, and then taking that money to buy more slaves and then go sell to the farmers, who are then exporting that out to the to Europe, etc., to buy to the people that are buying it. So capitalism created the market for the slaves to be gathered by people in Africa. So a lot of them were Africans and a lot of them were black. But that doesn't stop the fact that the United States had upheld a system and built a system of oppression based on that fact, based on race, really, and to be able to purchase people from this country that was okay, that up the system that allowed it to happen. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's just I don't know. It doesn't absolve the United States. So when some people try to deflect and say, look, black people in Africa sold black people to America for slaves, so what are you going to do about it? That doesn't matter. What matters is a federal institution of oppression based on racial description. It was instituted. So whether or not bad actors existed in Africa has nothing to do with the fact that bad actors existed in America, in my opinion. If Africa wants to deal with the people who sold their brothers and sisters into slavery, then Africa can deal with that. Africa's an entire continent, but they can figure that out, I'm sure, between countries if they really wanted to. So I don't know. So let's see. Got some more comments going in. Got some folks joining us. 3 people. Thank you for joining. Got one person on Facebook joining in. Dump some comments in there. What are your thoughts on the whole matter? And whatever. If you want to change the subject, give us a good subject to talk about. But I probably won't do it because it's a deep subject and we're getting pretty good into it. All right. Where are we? Tina says they would never do that because they depend on capitalism, especially in contrast between the United States and South America. I'm not really sure exactly what you're referring to, but I'm going to go along with that. Chris says, but a slave was looked at as a piece of property. So wouldn't that be part of capitalism? To be buying and selling property for monetary gain? Right. Yeah. That is. In fact, that's part of like extreme capitalism, right? Capitalists are constantly trying to find the lowest cost for labor. So technically, let's think about this. This is worse. How about this? If they can get their labor for free, then that is the cheapest form of labor. However, what if you have to feed your labor? What if you have to clothe your labor? What if you have to, take care of your labor's medical needs? And you want to take care of them to the point where they're so useful to you and don't degrade too quickly, and you get return on investment. We talked about this before, right? So yes, that is true that it in of itself has the buying and selling, the market and auction capacity of a market that can also exist under capitalism. But also the capitalist, actually, if you think about it, under wage slavery, the capitalist can pay less than what it costs to feed, pay less than what it costs to medicate you, pay less than what it costs to shelter you, pay less than what it costs for you to survive, and you will still take it out of desperation. And if there is no government program to help you, you may die on the street. And what will the capitalists do? They will find another. So in a way, the slave has those things because the capitalist has to sort of, in a way, guarantee those things to at least get a return on investment to some degree. Now, once you are of no use to the capitalist in that sense as a slave, then you would be exterminated if there was no rules or law or whatever, or dealt with in some other way. But anyway, yeah. That's the scary part. I think Engels pointed that out, that a chattel slave belongs to one slave master. The wage slave belongs to the owner class, to the entire owner class. So they belong to everyone, but no one at the same time. So they're no one's responsibility. You see what I mean? And so, yeah, you could die and they'll find a new one of you. The only thing that will correct the wage that will at least pay enough for your survival is when enough laborers die off to where wages have to go high enough for them to pay you survival. I mean, in the rawest sense, that's where it could lead to. And that's what it does lead to in third world countries. We have a labor movement. People put their lives on the line. We forgot about that as Americans, that people died in strikes and were shot by the National Guard because they wanted labor rights. And here we are complacent, just sitting on our thumbs, thinking that they just are, they're just taking them for granted. People died for those rights and they're getting stripped away little by little. We're going backwards into that because capitalists seek that. Profit margins are always going to be diminishing under capitalism. This is known. Marx talked about this. Hell, even Adam Smith, to some degree, talked about this. It's going to be a diminishing return. They're always going to look for a new profit margin source, including chopping labor cost. And that's always going to be a chance. And now with automation, you'll get more desperation. More desperate people means they'll pay you less. Capitalist pay is always inversely proportionate to your desperation, meaning what? More desperate you are, the less they pay you, right? So you have to consider all those things. There's layers to the onion. All right, so here we go. Comment section blowing up. So let's see. Tina says, Chris says there were slaves and indentured servants. They worked together and also lived together. One just had slightly higher value than the other. Right. Indentured servants, well, number one, you typically had choice as to whether to engage in this servitude, and you generally could pay your way out of that servitude. Right. Tina says, you're welcome. They unblocked me on November 11th. Oh, well, good for you. Congratulations on November 11th. That's coming up. I'm blocked on Twitter. I've been blocked for about 2 months now because I called Bill O'Reilly. I think I called him an ignorant slut. I'm just quoting Michael Scott from The Office. So I don't know why they had to get so mad. He said, Dwight, you ignorant slut, when he was doing some speech. And so I said, Bill O'Reilly, you ignorant slut. Now I'm blocked. I mean, I've been blocked off Twitter for, who knows? I'm probably just blocked for life. Fuck Twitter. But whatever. Here we go. Where are we in? I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to see. One of these days, I'm going to have staff and they're going to pull up these comments and help out with this stuff. Where's Tina? Oh, here we go. Tina says, she goes on to say, I get random news from Facebook on my top of my cell phone, and you popped up. Hey, awesome. And I searched reparations. I think that if we create a parallel economy with indigenous money, that's a start. Ooh, well, don't talk too much about that because JFK talked about that. Hint, hint. That, I mean, not really, but sort of. Called creating a national currency that was linked to something like gold that was off the Fed Reserve. because I believe that they claim they don't have money, but printing money is fairly cheaper. Um, let me see. She's saying the overall economy in Africa was socialism. Yeah, within factions or within groups of people, there were probably like either tribal or people who, even in cities or communal groups, really probably lived in a basically communist style of. I mean, we had that in the American West or the frontier land. That we talked about in past episodes. We talk about the romanticization that libertarians of all people, the super capitalist libertarians, that romanticize these sort of enclaves where there's people who specialize in like the weapons master or the blacksmith or the farmers and the seamstress or whatever, the leather people and the da da da, and like they all work together and they just brave it against the elements, and they all work. Everybody's got their strength, and they all find something. Everyone pitches together and makes the town work. Hey, that's communism. Especially if you don't have any money involved in this whole thing. And that's how it was in the American West. That's how a lot of indigenous cultures were. That's how I think probably Tina's referring to things were in Africa. Africa had great kingdoms in there. So some things were more like collective type things, or there might be monastic or dictatorships. But doesn't mean that they also didn't have great programs for their people from those monarchies, etc. All right, what else did she say? Where are we? She said something about it's like a new world order. Okay, that means a lot of things to a lot of people, by the way. Tina Campbell says, because now it's about the United States, because from slavery, now it's not about like seeing other Africans. Now it's about brown people. You might have to elaborate on that one a little bit. It's because now it's about the United States, because from slavery now it's not about like Africans seeing other Africans. Now it's about brown people. And I'm glad you like the convo, Tina. And again, get subscribe. I'm really glad you tuned in, and get your friends to tune in. Get people who agree with you to tune in. Get people who you're constantly arguing with. Get them to tune in. I want to argue with somebody. Not that I don't appreciate everybody that echoes and resonates with what I put out there. But sometimes we get some folks. I used to have a guy that would tune in and always talk about socialism and talk shit on socialism, and he's devout caps, and so I would have to try to fight against his capitalist tropes and propaganda and whatnot. So all right. So anyway, invite them on. If you're tired of people and you're of debating people, and you're like, look, I can't debate my point here. I'm tired of this crap. Debate James. Here, go on the board, debate this guy. I'm sort of itching for that because I think it'd be fun. And then that way I can graduate to debating people like Ben Shapiro or those people. And then that might be pretty cool. Maybe, and I'll get you guys tickets, because super fans get whatever I get, you guys get. All right. So that's my pledge to the super fans. And so Tina, keep tuning in. You'll be a super fan, just like super fan Chris and super fan Mike. Got a couple other super fans floating around. Got 3 people on. I'm sure pretty much all you guys are super fans. That by this point, with all the participation, Tina is a super fan, I would say. All right, well, I'm trying to read through here. All right, so where are we? Tina says that's why they want to control reparations, to give us the minimum. They look at feeding us clothing as reparations. But it's a human right. Chris, superfan Chris says, I believe the The whole reparations conversation is being started by someone who doesn't look like the people reparations are meant for. Ooh. So whomever can promise it will get the most votes knowing it. Interesting. I think it's almost the other way around. I have a theory about the ADOS movement and their vote abstention movement specifically. The one that says that ADOS will not vote if the candidate does not promise reparations. To me, I believe the person really at the end of it, pushing for it, funding it, does not look like the person who would actually benefit from reparations, because what do you have to do? All you got to do is rile up white people enough to scare them into the thought of reparations coming out of their pockets, out of the mouths of their children, going to those black kids and black thugs and blacks sitting around blacks, in all the blacks in the Dave Chappelle video, right? And that's what these people, you stoke those kind of images, right? Make it so that no politician would run on reparations or reparations in their platform. And so if someone says I'm going for reparations and they're sure to lose, at least in the time where there's a large enough white majority that would vote along that way. So maybe the window is small, like within the next 10, 20 years or something, but there might be where this might not do anything. Where right now calling for that is basically a disenfranchisement of the black vote, and becomes the white supremacist dream of basically having the black people stay home from voting instead of going out and voting, just because they made it too scary for a politician to try to come out and openly support reparations. That's my theory to this. And so that's like 4D chess right there to me, that you would pay a super black movement really to not participate in the presidential vote unless the candidate guaranteed that they were putting reparations on the table or something to that effect. Otherwise, they're not going to vote. That's some heavy shit, to take away. I mean, to go ahead and stand on your right to vote, because that kind of state. I think you should have marches or something. You should put candidates up or something, but that'll push that narrative harder or something like that. They may not win, but they're still making it vocal in a platform that's out there, and they normalize it or something. But if you just push this narrative that someone else has to run and put reparations on, I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, Superfan Chris says, would probably not happen. Tina Campbell for them. I think she means to say selling. Yes. Okay, let me see. Tina said, let me go back to that. It's not about Africans selling other Africans now. It's about brown people. Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of white people that deflect on America's responsibility for slavery and its effect specifically on black people. They deflect to the fact that black people in Africa were part of the framework and machine of slavery. It's a deflection of white supremacy at the end of the day, is really what it is. Okay. Tina. Wait, where are we? Selling. Okay, so yes, there we go. Tina says they want to say we're not here or there, like limbo. Chris says, yeah, I would love to get some good debates on here about some touchy subjects. Tina says, just nasty, see what I'm saying. Interesting point. Don't know which point that is, but yes, I I concur that it is interesting. Tina says Twitter and Facebook don't like the truth. Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it's all about how you do it. You know, a spoonful of sugar, right? Tina says, I have to go to court because the police framed me because of reparations in part. Whoa, that's an interesting story, if you wouldn't mind sharing. Miss Campbell says they already talked about killing me and robbing robbing my house when I go to jail. Hopefully I won't go. Chris says, whoa, and I concur with Chris. Holy shit, what the fuck is going on? Tina, what is going on? Please write a book and tell us. That sounds pretty crazy. But it also sounds like you might be fighting the fight. You got in trouble with the police because you talked about reparations, due in part to reparations. That I'm interested in hearing more about that story. But until then, thank you guys on Facebook for joining in. Looks like we got three folks on Facebook. Go ahead and dump something in the comments. What is your take on whatever we're talking about? Some crazy stuff. Tina saying slave breeding, brown people mixing. Wow. What is it? What? Brown is a different contract. Now, when you say contract, does that affect this contract that you're referring to? Does that affect people that are born like now, like that didn't necessarily sign a contract or something? I need a little bit more detail on where you're coming from on that, Tina. But there is a lot to that. And that's where things get tricky in the whole reparations talk. There has been a lot of quote unquote mixing. Even the ADOS folks are mixed up in the, the things get lost in the sauce. You know what I mean? Like if you got mixed with white person, how much of the slave descendancy do you get? But however, in the way that federal law looked at blackness, if you had a drop of black blood, then you were black. And if that was the fact, then even if you're mixed, then you should still get, even if you're mixed, you should still get fixed, right? They should still help you out if that's the case, because I'm pretty sure if you were mixed, you some consequences of being black, basically. But indigenous folks, that's a little different matter. I think that indigenous folks, it's a little bit different. They got their own thing. Now, I'm not saying that things are right with the indigenous folks either. There's a lot wrong that needs to be right, but we have to acknowledge that as a people, and we have to just tell the truth about to each other, and that's what we're here for. That's what the Boyd is for, talking about the truth, whether or not it hurts us. Because what is the saying that you see when the show's talking or starting and ending? It is the truth hurts. It is weakness leaving your mind. So sometimes the truth may be unsettling and uncomfortable to us. And I'll be the first to admit that I've run into that situation myself firsthand. But that is something that I hope we're all willing to deal with together, right? Tina says, I will keep tuning in. You're chill. Well, thank you. And I'm glad that you'll keep tuning in. Like I said, like, subscribe, share. Get folks to tune in and be part of this conversation, because I think a lot of folks would really dig what you have to say, Tina. And I think you added quite a bit to the convo. And so so make sure you're tuning in. Looks like we got four folks on YouTube, 2 folks on Facebook. So Facebook folks, any opinions out there? I know a lot of the Facebook folks like to sort of touch and go. So maybe just drive by, dump a comment down, and let us know what you're thinking. And we got some pretty live comments, pretty interesting perspectives going on in the live comment stream. Remember, if you are tuning in live You can also follow the Skype link and Skype in during the live show, and you can be on the show and ask your questions or give your input or argue or debate or whatever it is that you are trying to do on this day at this time. So anyway, reparations, should it happen at some point? Yeah, the more we kick the can down the road, we're just putting the burden on our children. I think it is a burden that should be done, should be rectified. However, maybe it's in less of a monetary way and more of a cultural, significant way. I don't know. Because in a post-scarcity society, for instance, if you are not afraid of survival, does the need for reparations still remain in the same sense? Or could cultural significance be enough? Could the heralding of ADOS status, of a descendancy of slave status, be something like, maybe it's like this thing that you have, that you're an official ADOS, and that you maybe get like a veteran status, get 10% off special ADOS sale. I don't know, some shit like that. And you show your ADOS badge you got because you followed whatever the ADOS group of people decided is constitutionally okay for them to verify their ADOS status. I don't know. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that kind of thing in time will help itself. Maybe there'll be more ADOS programs for land ownership and grants that can be attained, and business ownership grants and real estate grants and shit like that. There's ways that we could talk about this. It's a lot of it has to do with how things get framed. Things always get framed in money, taxation, like basically you're stealing from the mouths of the white babes to feed the black thugs. And that's not what we're, that's not the reality. That's the hyperbole. That's the cartoon image that people are thinking of. What we really should think about is the fact that slave labor built the White House. Slave labor built a lot of what the pre-industrial and, almost going into industrial, early industrial, even after slavery, basically the conditions of slavery practically still existed. I mean, wage slavery didn't change that much. You know what I mean? Look at what Frederick Douglass says. He says in his experience, there exists a slavery of wages that is nearly as bad as chattel slavery or something. I'm butchering it now, but basically is nearly as bad as chattel slavery, and it should go down with the other, right? So the alternative to chattel slavery, which is wage slavery, really wasn't that much different, because Frederick Douglass was both a slave and a free wage slave, a free man, wage slave, who then later on did his own thing. But he played roles within society, and he wrote about his experiences therein. So it's a tricky topic at the end of the day. All right, so like I said, though, everything is tricky. Superfan Mike says, this is an amazing show tonight. Very deep stuff. Oh, thank you, Superfan Mike. It's because you guys are willing to absorb and think about some deep things. And I think that kind of stuff is what we need. We talk about things in meme form. We talk about things in extremes. We make up things that rile each other up instead of saying, okay, wait a minute. Yeah, there was some really shitty stuff that was happening. And there were specific rules and laws that said if your skin color was a certain tone, you don't get to own a house. You don't get to own a business, or you don't get to do this. You don't get to vote for your representative, or you don't get to go to this part of town, or you don't get to use this place, or water fountain, or bus, or whatever, these things. And that was that was institutionalized into law, right? That's the major thing. It's not just like people had feelings. That's not about, oh, people were racist and they stopped being racist. No, these were codified into law. So now the apparatus that forced that condition should undo that to some degree, because that's what happened. And it's not the fault of the current white people today, but they should blame their forefathers for shitting on them and not undoing what they did. You know what I mean? It's pretty shitty. Okay, so Tina says, that's why I don't vote. Whoa, she don't vote. Oh, no. Oh, Mike don't vote either. Come on, you guys got to vote. At least pretend. You got to try. You just got to put in air. You got to at least do this stuff until the revolution. You know, it's something. You know, you got to play their game until we make a move. When I say we, CIA, NSA, I mean that in a figurative sense. But when the revolution begins, then sure. But come on, you got to play the game. Chris, agree. Very good show. Oh, thank you. Tina, keep coming back every Wednesday. Yes, every Wednesday at 9 Eastern, we do the live show. And sometimes on Sunday, though I haven't been doing a Sunday session. I've been so busy lately. Life has been crazy. Though I think there's going to be some pretty interesting developments in the future. Keep tuned in for that. We'll see. Yes, let's see. What else? Tina says, me too, Mike. You got everyone come back. Yes, please, everybody. Please come back. Please keep us posted about the court. Yes, Tina. And figure out Skype so you can call in face to face. And then, yes, please call in and talk to us about these contracts. I think we need some more detail. I think everyone agree on what you mean by contracts, the details of these contracts and whatever, share that. So figure out your Skype. Follow in the description of this video. There is a Skype link. And I think if you don't have Skype, it asks you to join Skype and just follow that. And I'm right there. That's the profile. And you can, you can be on the show. You could be a guest on the show. We could do a whole show with you, Tina, if you want to do a whole show. You can do that. We'll learn a little bit about you. You can tell us this amazing story about whatever the hell is going on with the court and the police and the reparations. Holy shit. Tina says, I kind of feel like if people who do not have a direct role should not feel guilty, that should have no problem talking about it. Yeah, you would think, but here's the thing. Sometimes people wrap their identity into these things. So for instance, by them acknowledging that a bad thing happened that white people did to black people, and if they're white, that they by proxy also did it because of their whiteness and they're associated with it, they want to deny that it exists rather than face the fact that it existed and that there's just ramifications to that, and we should look at that. You know what I mean? Like for me, like they would rather call me a race hater or a race traitor because I'm willing to recognize the fact that America was built on slavery, that there was a massive, that it existed in the first place is a black mark, not even, even the term black possibly in some cases is a racial thing. Black as in the unknownness of night and that kind of thing, I guess. Anyway, it's a bad part of our history. The racism is a bad part of our history. It's documented racism. It's in speeches. It's just in shit. It's in our founding documents. It's in all of this shit, and to just point that out is to not hate the race of whiteness. I hate the whitewashing of things. I hate white fragility. You know what I mean? For me to acknowledge this notion that this happened to a group of people and that the descendants of that group of people should be due something does not make me a traitor to race or whatever, or being open to real social issues, or having open eyes and an open mind to real social issues based on historic precedent and fact, doesn't make it, just because it's uncomfortable doesn't make someone, like a traitor or whatever. But I hear that a lot, at least on Facebook, when I make these points known on these certain places. Okay. Tina says that makes you feel like they did have a direct role, because at the end of the day, a lot of them did benefit. They don't want to realize that, yeah, my family did benefit from owning the slaves. Like, for instance, my family might have benefited. Boyd family might have, in my lineage, might have benefited from having slaves. So I don't know. Maybe the reparations court will come after me in the future, to some level of degree of responsibility that we've hashed out as a society that we can somewhat agree on. I think we could talk about it. We don't have to, it doesn't have to be a slippery slope crazy thing. Okay, Tina says, I kind of feel like the government wants to have a discussion about reparations because it's a weapon of warfare. It's kind of like exhaustion. Some things are better expressed through action. Yeah, but the question becomes what action, because the government really does not have much tolerance and patience for any real action. And so if you do try to do that, just look at the people who tried to actually push anything into real action in our past. They'll find their way to neutralize the action. However, I think there is an awakening group of people. Anytime I get a chance, I try to awaken people to this notion that the American people have to learn to protect themselves from the agents that would do harm to those who would work for the American people. So, for instance, the next JFK needs to have an armed populace there to have the back of the president. So there should be people in the crowds that are constantly looking out for snipers, because they know that the people's person is going to be a target for the establishment, for people in the government, for rich people, for people who have power now. They're going to hire mercenaries. They're going to use the government against the person, this great unifier that will come in the future. Until the people use their Second Amendment right and they start looking out for the snipers, they start looking out for the CIA agents, they don't let this happen. They make sure to vet each other to where they know that there's nobody that will harm the president or whoever this great unifier becomes. They have to remember that we are the ones that protect their children as security. We, the people, are the ones that feed them at the restaurants and in their homes a lot of times. We are the ones, the proletariat, the people, the workers, are the ones who do their laundry, clean their houses. We are the ones that fix their cars, that do, build their houses, that do anything that they need done, get done. So they can try to escape, but they will always be surrounded by us. And so that becomes a important thing to remember, a la Fight Club. That's something that Fight Club taught us, right? All right. So let's see what Tina says. And then I heard a little chime. So what does that mean? I don't know. It doesn't mean that we have any new we don't have any new Facebook folks, but let me go ahead and read off what Tina's got to say, and then we might just call it a day because we're coming up on an hour and a half, and y'all are probably tired of hearing me yap about some shit and this, that, and the other. All right, let's see what we got. Express through action. Kind of in the field. Okay, so here Tina says, let me drink something real quick. You got a lot of, she wrote quite a bit, so I want to be able to read it to you guys. Tina says, I just kind of feel like it has to tie brown American Indians. Because if you think about it, African American on their own have no predisposition to the land. Because I'm an American Indian, but I'm also mixed with Puerto Rican, Blasian. Interesting. And I kind of feel like they hate me because I'm not American Indian and white. What? And then I also feel like Hispanics don't like me because they worship white people. Wow. There's a lot of deep stuff going on there. You know, and I hate that things have to be so racially centered. You know, my brother is racially ambiguous. Me and my brother obviously share. He's really my half brother, but we do share very similar, I guess, genetic circumstances. Right, my father is the same. We share the same father, different mothers, but we're both of our mothers are Asian in heritage. One from Vietnam, Chinese descendancy, but lived in Vietnam, and one, my mom is from Taiwan. I'm assuming Chinese descendancy as well, right? From Taiwan. And so we both sort of look, I mean, I've been racially ambiguous forever. People don't know if I'm white or if I'm not. Basically, I'm white passing, so I'm white enough. But most white people are like, there's something kooky about you. You're white enough, but, something's still weird about you. What are you? So I get that a lot. My brother gets that even more. And it really bothers him. Why does it matter so much? Like why do people need to know specifically what race he is? And then if whatever he ends up sort of alluding to, then they define him based on their stereotypes of whatever the race is that they've settled upon. And it's weird. So I can relate to where you're coming from, Tina, as being someone who's mixed race or racially ambiguous. I ran into that, especially in racially charged places like Oklahoma, for instance, where I had white friends for a good amount of time until they found out that I am half Chinese, and then suddenly that became a big deal. So, and then I lost all my white friends, and I started hanging out with the black folks and Hispanic folks. Mostly black folks because I didn't speak Spanish, and folks didn't speak Spanish either. And I like rap and R&B, and we jived on that regard. And something about it, I mean, I'll just be honest about it. I mean, the black girls in school just was fawning for your boy. And what can I say? And they were like, no, he is cool. And they would invite me over to lunch. No, you need to bring him over. And you be nice to him. Da da da. And so everyone was nice to me. And I had a lot of friends. But my father, I hate to say, did not like that I hung out with black folks because he was pretty racist. He still sort of is, but less now. I don't know if he's going through some kind of redemption phase, whatever. But we got in big heated stuff. I mean, there's some bad moments because of his feelings about stuff. So you know what? The apple can fall far from the tree. The way I like to think about it was the tree was on a hill and the apple rolled away. Because my ass rolled definitely far away from the tree that he was growing on. All right, Tina says, and I also feel like, okay, Hispanics, yes. Chris says, that's all very deep. Oh, he says it's deep too. Thank you, Chris. I mean, not thank you, but we think alike. African Americans identify with indigenous peoples, Moors, Hebrews, Israelites, ADOS, and so forth. Some will accept reparations, others will be against. At the end of the day, one thing I want to say is that white supremacy is something that pervades all of it. Right. So there's slavery itself, but white supremacy affected all people of color. So that's that's another layer of the onion that we have to remember, that's overarching this whole thing. That's like a background layer of static that's happening all the time, right? Like this music that's playing, Seprock beats playing in the background. The background, you have to remember, is in every event that happened, even the stuff like the internment of Asian Americans and that kind of thing, all spawns from white supremacy, right? Even the Jew thing all comes from white supremacy, right? And someone out there can be like, "Oh, I can't believe he said the Jew thing instead of Holocaust," or whatever. Don't get triggered. Um, you know what I mean? I'm diminishing everything because of how serious it is. Put it that way. It's already too damn heavy. I'm trimming it down. All right. Tina Campbell says, "I just don't feel like holding is necessary because all you're doing is voting for the next slave owner." Oh, voting. I just don't feel like voting is necessary because all you're doing is voting for the next slave. You know, to some degree, yes, perhaps, but you or your friends or somebody could run for office and change something. We, the people, are the government. We should be fighting for that. We should not be treating the government. You're falling for the trap that the people in power, have set. The slave owners have set this for you to say that the government is not you. You are the government. The slave owner has told you otherwise. So don't believe the hype. Run for something. In fact, go to runforsomething.org. They will help you run for something, especially if you're socialist or progressive. They really are backing a lot of progressive candidates all over the place. So if you're really interested in making a difference, or you know someone who's smart and could be a good leader in your community, go to runforsomething.org and get them involved. If you don't want to run for something, you can volunteer for something and help out with campaigning. There's a million things you can do that they need help with. So runforsomething.org, that is good. I hope I'm not screwing it up. I'm pretty sure that I'm not getting sponsored by them. I'm just saying that we all are in this together. Don't let big money and the oligarchs and the rich run this shit anymore. We can fight. We can fight. Look at AOC. She's a bartender. She became a very influential person in the House, right? So just running for a House seat and saying controversial things is enough to move the needle around. All right. So Tina says Chris says, Hebrew Israelites believe this is a curse from the Most High God. So I'd assume that they wouldn't accept any reparations. Maybe not. I mean, I think it should be voluntary, of course, whether or not you want to accept reparations, etc. Tina says, I would like to do a whole show. Please do, Tina. Figure out Skype, or if you're in the Florida or North Florida area and you want to come to the location in the shop studio, I'll let you know that there is a lot of movie magic that's going on, and there's not very much room, and you get to sit on these uncomfortable chairs. However, you get to be on the show live here in person on the show. Not that that really matters, but it might matter. I don't know. Yes, Tina, I would love to have you be on as a guest. So please figure out Skype or Facebook Messenger, and I'll have you on as a guest. But as you can hear, Seprock Beats is going on in the background. So that means, and wow, we got up to 6 people tuning right at the very end when I'm about to close shop. But those folks tuning in, please like, subscribe. We were talking about reparations, talking about some crazy stuff. Check it out in the archives. Talking about some real shit. We're not afraid to cover real topics and talk about it in a succinct and direct manner. And we are not dealing with any bullshit. So don't even try to give some fun bullshit. So I'm going to call you out on it. I'm just waiting to call a motherfucker out on some bullshit. So take that as a challenge. How about that? Right? And my super fans, of course, are waiting to see what happens when someone tries to slang some bullshit upon us and we call and see them out for what they are. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Another fun and amazing episode of The Void. And if I say so myself, some deep shit we talked about. And tune in next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Be sure to sign up for the notifications. Click on the bell so that you can get notified when I go live, especially for Sunday Sesh. So if I do a Sunday Sesh, you want to be signed up with notifications so that you can tune in and join in. Usually, it's about whatever you want to talk about. I'm just have some time and I'm like, let's have a discussion. So especially if you have something that you're itching to talk about, get in touch and we'll do a Sunday session about whatever you want to talk about. Tina, figure out Skype, get in touch, and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. Definitely want to talk about the different contracts that you alluded to. All right, till the next show, y'all be good and peace out. Remember, Seprock Beats on the mix. All right, peace.
Mike, how's Operation Boring Tape Drive? Just got more